Okay, thank you for that, and welcome to the call. So this is going to be quite a general call, and we're starting it just a little earlier than usual because not everybody could make it for the full hour at 2 o'clock. And this call is mostly following up on the call that we had in the W3C last week, going through requirements for the membership or entitlements proposal that we discussed there. So this is intended to be a more concrete sort of technical discussion of what those requirements are and what their scope should be. I think the person who had, I think, raised the largest number of concerns on the W3C call was Debbie. Debbie, would it be worth just going through what your chief concerns are there, or should we start by just going through the requirements document again and maybe unpicking things on a more technical level?
Yeah, I'd probably struggle to remember exactly what they were if I'm honest. So yeah.
Okay.
But we're missing people in comparison to the call last week. I guess Ben's not on here, and Andrew is, and Andy is okay from Gladstone perspective.
Yeah.
Just trying to establish who is here, but Ben's not here from an everyone active perspective.
Yeah, well, the intention is that this discussion will be a bit more technically focused. So hopefully Andy and Andrew will have more insight than maybe Ben's high level perspective technically.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, sorry, maybe I'll pass to Andrew and Andy. So we've got two documents. One of them is the high level requirements document. And then the other is the actual proposal itself, the very detailed proposal. We have talked about the high-level requirements a bit already on the W3C call. Would it be worth starting high-level again, or would you like to delve down into the details right away?
I think from our perspective, Tim, obviously we've had a couple of conversations around that. Andy wasn't able to join the call last week, so perhaps if we just cover off some of those again, just so
sure.
Just so there's nothing lost in that translation.
Okay, I will find which of my many tabs I should be sharing here. Okay, there we go. Good. Okay, sorry, that is actually the low-level document. Okay, so here's the high-level document. Points in red are nuances or clarifications that were added after the W3C call, just to tighten the requirements a little bit. So I will just canter through this one more time, and then if we can, stop to see where the particular points of friction are at any level of detail people like, but with the idea that we're free to open up a more technical discussion than we were in the previous forum. That would be great.
Sorry, Tim, just a quick flag. I don't know if you might have already covered this. Apologies, I was slightly late today. I was just on another call. Do we need? I know some people might need to leave early. And we also wanted to cover off kind of status around current implementations, things like that. Is it worth just checking who's around until when, so we can fit that in the agenda as well? If that's been covered, then apologies.
Sorry, I know that hasn't been covered. Sorry, my understanding was that it was mostly everyone active who couldn't be present from 2:30 onwards, and that would go to the end of the meeting. But maybe if I'll just stop sharing. Good point, Nick. Sorry, who here needs to leave at 2:30?
I would need to leave, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, myself as well, thanks.
Okay.
James, I'm going to point to you because you did see it to leave at 2, but just double checking if that's not the case.
Yeah, I'll need to leave at 2, unfortunately, for another internal meeting, yeah.
Okay, right, so thank you for that, Nick. Okay, we will do a quick review then. Apologies for changing gear. We'll do a quick review then for a sense of people's implementation time scales then. Or indeed whether, maybe just the maturity with which they're contemplating implementation. And I think I will just need to do this going by the order of people I get on my screen, frankly. So if I can start with actually with Matthew Davis from Sports.
Yeah, nobody can pronounce it. We aimed it to be sports, basically, you know, same pronunciation as sports. But anyway, yeah, so we have completed the implementation of the Open Booking API. And in terms of membership, we don't have a concrete timeline for when we'll be implementing that. We kind of need to get some more details clear in our own heads about what's involved in that before committing to a particular time frame. But ASAP is sort of the goal, as far as you know, our major customer here being We Play Football and their integration with MCR Active. So these meetings will give us a bit more of an understanding of when that timeline might be. But yeah, that's a brief overview.
Okay, so it's a two-way process then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, no worries. Debbie, can I turn to you?
I mean, you can, but we are at the hands of Gladstone, and obviously when they are able to implement a solution.
Okay, but you'd be,
software.
I guess you're governed by the MCR Active deadline as well, ideally.
Yeah, I don't know what that deadline is personally, I'm afraid.
Right, okay, but that's
so it's like last year or something.
Yeah, yes, we're in IT scheduling world now, definitely. Andrew Marshall, which I assume would also, well, Andrew or Andy, whoever feels like taking the lead there.
Yeah, so obviously from our perspective, we've been working mostly with everyone active, looking at the spec for Manchester and Westminster and putting together a plan and scoping that out. So from our side, we've got negotiations going on between the two parties on looking at that, because as we've mentioned before, you know, right now we see the membership edition as bespoke work. So it's really, we just need to come to an agreement, and then we've got a plan for getting that then rolled out.
Right. Okay. But and with regard to open booking more broadly, so leaving aside membership for a moment, have you got a particular sprint schedule for that or start date?
Yeah, so that's so we've done some of the work around that, and yeah, we just continue to be there and get that up and running and supporting the initiative.
Okay, right, but no specific start date or
No.
end date, I suppose, envisaged. Okay, right.
I suppose maybe worth clarifying there, because we're currently working with Andy on some of the kind of supporting activities there. But I mean, is it fair to say that there is work currently underway, and just this is about kind of figuring out what implementation support is required more broadly to support all these activities? So I guess when they happen is important, because if they're happening now, then we need to obviously be able to resource that and support that now. If they're happening in January, then we should resource and support in January. So I guess the question is for both open booking and membership, when is that work happening? And if it's happening now, then that's good to know.
Yeah, I mean, Andy's been kind of leading that side of the project, so happy for yeah. Do you want to update on that, Andy?
Yeah, afternoon all. So where we are at the moment, we are still engaged in reviewing our MWS, our member web services, which caters for the booking functionality outside of our product stream. When I say outside of our product stream, we obviously have our products that end users would actually be using, but this is all using APIs. So we're still reviewing the MWS in the areas of the booking functionality, payments, refunding, cancelling, moving, and in the same light as well, we're also in negotiations, discussions with the clients, everyone active, as to the level of functionality that they wish to support in light of the MCR requirements as well. So there's some discussions going on there at the moment, and we've got some more calls scheduled in for next week in that particular area. So we are in the sprint cycle at the moment, but as it stands at the moment, it's purely reviewing our own member web services. We have found some issues as part of the review, and we're fixing them as we go through, based on the priority and whether they're going to be a showstopper or a restriction and impediment with regards to the current level of functionality required. So that's ongoing. We've received feedback from Nick with regards to the where we need to extend the availability data feeds as well to meet the new spec for the OA booking API requirements. So we've got that in refinement. Well, I was supposed to be in refinement. They're refining that at the moment. And the view is that we'll be taking in the investigation task in the next sprint, so we can then actually review in line with the actual data feeds themselves, review any risk and so on, any not so much showstoppers, but as I say, risk and areas that we need to maybe flag with Nick and questions on those particular areas before committing to code. Once we've got that investigation done, then that will become development task in the forthcoming sprint once they're refined. So it's ongoing at the moment.
Right. Okay. I sort of slightly lost. A sprint is 2 weeks, I guess.
We run 2 week sprints cycles.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So it looks like there's another couple of sprints worth of refactoring and review, and then maybe 3 sprints. Ish.
We're probably looking at 3 to 4 sprints as it stands at this moment in time.
Right. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
And a specific question on the, I know that Andy, you'll likely be using the OpenActive kind of booking, the .NET booking components, which I know that the libraries that the team have been using, but the booking version of those libraries, when you actually come to doing that work, do you have a sense of when you might start to use that library, get into the kind of implementation and using the test suite and all that kind of stuff?
Got no timescales on that particular piece at this moment in time.
Okay. So, but is that because it hasn't been scheduled, or just because it comes after the other things that you're doing?
It'll be an area we'll be looking at either after or alongside when we're in a position to do so.
Sure. So I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to get a sense of, does that mean that we put that in this year or next year, or we just have no idea if it's Q1 or Q2 or.
There's no suggestion that we're looking at next year. The requirements from the client itself, everyone active, is that we need this in as soon as possible. So there's no discussion with regards to next year. It needs to be in this side of the Christmas period, because there will be an element of shutdown with regards to their environment in deploying product suite as we get closer to Christmas. So we want to get something in there well before December, if necessary.
Okay, that's super helpful to know. So it's so the intention is ASAP rather than it's not got timescales, because we don't. It might be a long way in the future.
The remit that we've got, as you know, Nick, from the discussions we've been having with the client, is that they want this as soon as possible for both parties, Manchester and also everyone active.
Perfect. That's great clarity. Thanks, Andy.
Okay, thank you for that, Andy. If I can turn to James, please.
Yeah, sure. I believe, guys, and Nick, from the discussions we've had, we wanted a general update on the project so far. Is that correct? Is that what we're looking for today?
Oh, well, sorry. What I was hoping for was just a sense of what your implementation timescales are looking at, because
timescales. Okay. Yeah. So we've pretty much, from our perspective, we've pretty much completed development, in fact, with regards to the project and the work that we've been doing with Nick. We are due to have UAT updated on the 18th of October, which is the final piece in the jigsaw, really, for the implementation. So once that's into UAT, the final round of kind of fixes, we've been working on this iteratively, that'll be done and deployed early November, in time for what will be the GLL projected go live of the 4th of November, I believe, if that's still the case.
Oh, okay, right. So that's more or less immediate, really.
Yeah, we've all but done. We're very much coming into the closing elements of the project now, really. Just crossing a couple of T's and dotting the I's, making sure that Nick's got everything he needs. We're still maintaining regular contact, so we've still got weekly calls on the off chance that something crops up, and there's still a period of what we're terming post-implementation support, which really is just a fortnight of additional support whenever GLL go live with their integration. But we expect that to be from the 4th of November.
Okay, great. Excellent. And then finally, Sam.
Sorry, Tim, just to caveat on the back of what James has just said, it's just worth calling out that that's going to be an extremely soft launch.
Okay, right.
So there's no fanfare, nothing at all. It's really just to make sure that it's in a live environment and it's working. I mean, it will be working anyway because it'll be thoroughly tested in UAT. But there's no planned publicity or anything else that accompanies a normal release of this nature until next year.
Okay, right. So you're anticipating.
Oh, sorry, yeah, that's correct, Steve. Sorry, I apologise. I was speaking purely from a perspective.
No, that's fine. I just want to clarify for everybody else's benefit.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, yeah, nothing is going to leave this call about that. So yeah, don't worry about publicity on that score. But that's useful to know. Okay, so you're envisaging, some bug testing and iterative repair and things. Yeah.
And it's also worth just flagging, Tim, that from that project we've got some additional work that GLL actually need to do to fund on the test suite to make it cover all the various edge cases that were discovered as part of that. So there's been some additional investment there.
Okay, great.
And that's and in addition to some volunteer time from IMIN in improving some of the tooling around that. So I think the recognition is that the tooling wasn't quite where it should be. I think it still isn't quite where it should be, and that voluntary contribution probably isn't sustainable. But we obviously did what we needed to do to get Legend over the line.
Right. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, because the test suite has been funded through a couple of rounds, but it sounds as though your feedback is that a 3rd or 4th round is required.
Yeah, definitely. We've got there's absolutely more to do there. I think especially with the bigger systems, it's done well for the small systems, but I think when we get into the bigger ones, you get more interesting edge cases, shall we say?
Right. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I suppose that's fairly that comes with the territory. Yeah. The test coverage has to be wider. Okay. Sorry, Sam. Have you got a sense of implementation timescales for open booking?
Yeah, we do but not on memberships. So
Right.
we're starting to look at the timetabling and open booking elements to kind of mirror what Legend have achieved, I think, for the 4th of November. But I'm not saying we're going to go live on the 4th of November with this. We're obviously very focused on major launches to the end of the year. There's nothing in the next 2 sprints in this area, but one of our senior devs has been on calls and has been reviewed the documentation. So I think, broadly speaking, we feel quite comfortable with it, but we don't have timelines yet to say. But all I can say is that we're committed to it and going to get on with it when we can.
Right. Okay. And it's so I don't want to force your hand here, but again, that sounds like pre-Christmas then.
I think from the way it looks, we like to think we're going to do some work on it pre-Christmas, but that's not guaranteed either. So
right,
it really depends on how our launches go, to be honest.
Okay. Right.
But I think a lot of the groundwork's been done anyway. So.
Okay, great, and yeah, certainly experience would suggest that often it's the refactoring or revisiting of the system that is sort of the hard work, and that the open booking API is easier past that point. Okay, cool. Okay, thank you for that summary, all. I realize it's hard to forecast development schedules with any degree of confidence, so thank you for giving your best estimates there. And as I said before, this is not leaving this forum. This won't be minuted or published, but it'll be useful background for how conversations go forward for the remainder of the year. Okay, so moving back to hopefully a more detailed discussion of requirements than previously, or at least with the possibility of maybe specifying a little bit further
sorry, Tim, just one more thought I just had. Sam, I appreciate we couldn't say any timescales at all there, but it might be less obvious to folks that are less involved in the project there. When we say there's no timescales, if we were talking Q3, Q4, next year, we're probably not. Are we talking about it could be in June, July, or are we? I guess that's my key question. Is we can put some bounds around it. Maybe is it 2022, 23? What do you think?
Are you talking for the membership aspect or just open booking and timetabling?
Both, but separately. Both of those separately.
Putting memberships aside, I think we're committed to getting this done as soon as possible. I mean, it's kind of got to be done by Q1 next year. So, but I mean, our incentive and goal is to get it done as literally. We just want it off our plate. We've got other things to get on with, to be honest.
Okay, that's helpful. So there's an ASAP element to that as well as, but it will be by the end of Q1.
I think so, because Stephen, correct if I'm wrong, but we need to have all those centres live by Q1, but we actually want them live earlier than that. So
yeah, correct. Yeah, but end of Q1 is the deadline, is the removable deadline.
Yeah, agreed.
Thank you. Sorry, that's just helpful clarity.
Okay. Right. If we could, because I know Debbie needs to leave soon along with some other people. Yeah, if we could just maybe unpick the requirements a little bit more at a deeper level of detail. So this is sort of slightly a replay of the W3C call, but hopefully more technically focused. Allowing the customer to use a broker to make bookings on their customer account. I think as a requirement, this was fairly clear, and is sort of the foundation that you would build anything else on. What are the red flags for people here? It did seem as though the redirection into the operator's join website, is that as straightforward as this requirement makes it sound? I'll take silence as a yes there.
Yeah, I'm not sure if people are going to be able to kind of grok the doc as we kind of look at it, but that is literally just a redirect URL.
Mm-hmm.
There's those join websites exist on all providers, I think.
I'm just thinking of the user flow. I mean, is it really just hop them onto the website, no information is transferred, re-enter all the data and everything?
That's the current discussions that everyone's been having, yeah, because the data required for a join flow is more involved.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. You could absolutely do a magic link, and you might have the account already there. It's not something that I believe exists in Legend, at least, or at least the way that it works with JLL. Would that be? But are we saying to expand the scope to include a magic link in that case?
Oh no, I didn't. I was certainly not wanting to expand the scope. I was just wanting to make sure that these were scenarios that had been reflected upon, I suppose. That people were indeed, had worked through that UX flow and were happy with that kind of experience. Because yeah, on a technical level, it's certainly an easy requirement to satisfy. Have a working HTTPS link, as long as that's considered to be a desirable minimum requirement. But it sounds like that just hasn't been. Yeah, I guess what I'm not clear on is there agreement on this point, or is it just that this hasn't really been canvassed?
Someone else might want to jump in, but my sense is that the requirements that have been driven through MCR and Westminster don't include a magic link as part of that.
Right. Okay.
And so it's taken as the kind of the MVP almost. I think like with most of these requirements, it's trying to hit the minimum viable thing that will work for everybody in the in the first case, and then it might be that there's a version 2 of memberships, or another iteration that comes later to improve that experience. But this is just about getting the kind of very basic functionality out the door. I think, to reflect on those that weren't on the last call, I think Claire from Gladstone said that she was keen to ensure that we don't end up scope creeping this too much. So that, I think, is that reflection is something that I think everyone's felt throughout this process, trying to minimize this as much as possible, because obviously we only want to do what's necessary to get this over the line at this stage. And then once it's live and we've got kind of 5 or 6 of these up and running, that might be a good time to come back to it.
Okay, cool. Yeah, as long as, I mean, yeah, I'm certainly happy to have less rather than more for the scope of this. It's just that there's been considerable conversation about the browsing aspect of it, about the prices that you see and so on and so forth. So I was just wondering about how that was aligned with the idea that you're browsing and then you move into the join flow. But if everyone's happy with that sort of transition and keeping that as 2 separate operations, that's very helpful.
I think it's 2 different elements of pricing. The pricing that we've been discussing, as far as I'm aware, is the price for the activity that you're interested in. It's not the price for a membership that you're potentially going to purchase, which is what join is.
Oh yeah, that's right. But yeah, there's been concern that about keeping that as smooth as possible, I suppose, from a high level point of view. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone was happy that that kind of disruption would be okay for creating a membership. But it sounds as though there is agreement there that that's not seen as problematic. Okay. Allowing membership schemes within a region to provide a single membership card with a barcode that can be used in any participating seller. Is that waving any red flags for anybody there?
I think Debbie raised it on the last call, Tim, that we almost need to agree what the specification of the barcode is, so what font is used, and have all the facilities got the correct barcode readers in place, just that reception as well as entry control.
Okay, so this is, can you take me through that? That's, I thought we were simply declaring anything that wasn't sort of electronically transmitted as out of scope, but does it need to be more tightly specified than that?
Yeah, I mean, barcode, you've got different types of fonts, so you can have multiple different types of barcodes. So I think we almost need to define what those are, so all operators can ensure that they've got the correct readers.
Right. Okay. So coordination is required regarding font support. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is something that the booking spec currently has as an out-of-band agreement between. I think there's a beta property in the booking spec that covers that basically says this is an area for extension to the booking spec in the future to try and define a controlled vocabulary or something for this purpose. The booking spec didn't try to cover that because there's, I think Andrew's alluded to it, there's all manner of complexities in trying to nail down the various combinations of these things. So whether we continue with that approach through to memberships and have the same type of kind of future, that's a future route to expand on in the future, but not something that we need to deal with to get this working. In the short term and indeed medium and long term, potentially you could do that out of band between both sides, because there's barcodes. The barcode, there's a few barcode specifications that seem to be commonly in use that maybe we would just start to use and then see if we got any further information about that. But there's actually a slightly separate point that's related here, which is the current proposal in the detail does make assumptions about the form of the barcode number. So the fact you can prefix a barcode number is currently part of the spec. So whether there's a issue with that, I know that Debbie's mentioned that there's a postfix in Gladstone sometime in the way OpenActive do it, rather than a prefix at the end of the.
And sorry, the purposes of those prefixes is to identify the venue?
Is to namespace the barcode across, between brokers. So
Between-
MCR has one namespace, Westminster has another namespace.
Right, okay, right, okay, sorry, yeah, it's namespacing the other direction, okay. So there might be a problem about whether it's a prefix or a postfix.
Is a question. If anyone has any thoughts on whether there's a particular barcode format that wouldn't work as far as you're aware operationally, or whether it's just a case that, you know, we can just arbitrarily choose a prefix and that's great.
Sorry, can you just explain, Nick, the purpose of the prefix or suffix on that?
Yeah, of course. So the reason that this barcode setting is a bit interesting is because if you're a let's say you've logged into MCR and you've connected your account to your Everyone Active membership, the MCR barcode is the source of truth. And so because the MCR active barcode is the source of truth, the MCR active barcode is set on the account that you've connected to. So that's great as a kind of first example. But let's say you accidentally connected the wrong account. Let's say that you connected your kid's account and actually realized that you've got the same email address for both and you've got the wrong password. If you then disconnected and reconnected a different account, you then have the barcode set in both places. And this is the problem of having the source of truth not in the booking system for the barcode. So the way the proposal currently gets around that is it grants ownership to the broker of all barcodes with that prefix. And what that means is, in this example, it would revoke, the booking system would revoke the barcode from any other customers and any other users that it has, and it would apply it to the requested customer. And so if you logged in as your kid by accident, you log out and you log in again as somebody else, as yourself, then that barcode would be applied. And the second time it's applied, it would automatically revoke that barcode from the kid. And that's just the way that it ensures that we don't end up with a conflicted situation where you try to then add the barcode to the adult and you can't because you've already got it, the child already has the barcode, and then you're in a world of reconciling that, which is a whole other level of technical challenges. So a really simple way to get around that is just to use a prefix. Does that help, Andrew?
Yeah, I possibly might need to talk some of that through with Debbie, because I'm just sort of thinking, because obviously I may have missed some weeks back where this came to be, but obviously for us, there's the member ID is more important than the barcode ID, but I'm just trying to think how logically that's going to get passed through to our system to be able to recognize when that person comes through. So
well, that would be going
that's
through.
fine.
So that, Andrew, that would go through as an additional ID, an additional ID type. So we can handle that. That's not a problem. And whether it's prefixed or suffixed, again, it will be unique. Only one member or one record on the system can hold the same ID as if it were a normal card ID.
Yeah, and that's fine as long as we do the prefix or suffix before it comes into the system.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, Nick, I mean, are we saying that the prefix is added to the card, or it's part of the actual number that's generated by, in this example, MCR? Do they pass the whole string?
Exactly that. It's part of the MCR barcode that's just used globally throughout everything.
Yeah, so they'd send the MCR, whatever the code is, plus the number, and as long as it's unique and no one else has got it, it wouldn't fail. It would go against that particular record.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a very simple out-of-band agreement that has to occur there, I suppose. About what
that makes sense.
That prefix is, right?
It's in scope what we can do through our web services.
Okay, I think that's a useful unpacking. I'm actually puzzled by, however, the notion of different barcode fonts that Andrew raised. So again, there's an out-of-band agreement, but sorry, a particular barcode reader is going to be limited in what they can support.
So there will be different supported, but they might be configured differently as well. So you can configure barcode readers to only accept certain types of font as well. So it's just making sure that at reception and also any entry control that they're appropriately configured or they're the correct style.
Right. Okay. So the broker has to be aware when generating the barcode of what kinds are accepted by the institution.
There's an implicit mapping right now between the seller ID and the code type, which is code 128 or code 39 or something.
Right. Okay. And then there's a whole other domain where it's in fact not barcodes. It'll be a swipe card or something, but that's just out of scope. Okay.
But it's actually the same. So the specification is literally just transferring the number, and I believe most of the APIs that we're talking about here already just deal with the number. So there's no provision in Gladstone, I don't think, to add the code 39 or the font or anything like that. That's not something that is that right, Andrew? Andy?
Yeah, we don't necessarily attribute any form of fonts. That's more to do with the font that's actually being produced on the actual card that's then read by the appropriate readers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So basically no systems currently deal with the font in the system. So we would be adding this as an additional feature to all systems if it became part of the spec, which at this stage, given we haven't fully fleshed out what those options even are, it seems like it would be quite a jump to do.
Right. Okay.
It's probably more of a prerequisite with regards to brokers, with regards to what cards they're going to be producing, and an agreement with regards to what barcode fonts they'll be using that are compatible with the readers that are in place.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Okay.
it would have to be a negotiation, wouldn't it? Yeah, absolutely, between the brokers and the different system operators, finding something that works for everyone, because there'll be multiple systems, multiple sellers, multiple entry systems.
Right, but this is a ball of pain we don't have to deal with.
Yeah.
Okay. Excuse me, sorry if I duck suddenly. It's because I've got a wasp in the room. Okay. Allow a customer to join a membership scheme that provides, for instance, free swimming across a number of sellers, and then walk into a seller's venue and be recognized by their entry system. Okay. I'm actually not clear how this works, because it looks naively to me like this is actually just a version of 2.
Yeah, so the reason this requirement is in here specifically is because this is what requires you to actually create the member on the booking system at the point of the initial join, the initial registration. If you only need to create the members on demand, that allows for a total different architectural approach. Everything can be on demand. You can put databases in different places. But if you need to know the member when you walk in, and therefore you need to be able to use that membership at the gate to literally just walk in the center with the access control, then that changes the setup, because the alternative of moving everything into the cloud basically would require you to have the access control checking against the cloud databases for the multiple brokers for every person that comes through and swipes, which obviously then becomes a whole different level of challenge. And hence the reason for the requirement is that it narrows that focus to this direction, because that is a requirement, and it's something that was buried initially but has been surfaced at this level for that reason.
Okay, great. Okay.
I don't think it's just about free stuff though, Nick. It's not just about gaining access through the system. It's about when you make a booking that you charge the right price.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. There's other considerations around the way, depending on how the booking system works, having.
But I think it's just worth putting in there that that functionality is about assigning a membership to a member to ensure that the members gets what they're entitled to as part of the operator. It's not about access.
I was going to suggest I don't think that statement's actually particularly clear either. So when you say recognized by their entry system, do you mean the access control system, or just they recognize them that they're on the database?
Is it checking actually at reception rather than actually through an entry point?
Yeah, that's the distinction I was trying to make. Yeah.
If I'm understanding it right, that point is about assigning what we would call a subscription or a membership to an individual as part of the membership solution, There's got to be a way of determining what that subscription would be, and that will vary for every client or operator and combinations of. But the point that we're applying a membership is to allow the customer to get what they're entitled to. It's just about entitlements.
Yes. So one way of writing that could be to allow the customer to receive their entitled price through the booking system directly. The discount scheme's entitled price through the booking system directly. That's what you're saying, isn't it, Debbie?
No, not for that particular point. Yes, we want to allow the customers to get the prices they're entitled to, but to get the prices they're entitled to, the member record has to be updated in a certain way.
Sorry, I was trying to separate the requirement from the way the system's actually implemented, because in Gladstone that's the case, but that's not the case in all systems.
Yeah, but the requirement needs to be generic, so it's universal, surely, no, Nick?
Yeah, absolutely. So if the requirement is that we need to be basically, if you need to be able to log on, which you do, you'd be able to log into Play Football and get your discount, or log into Everyone Active and get your discount. That's a different requirement to what's written here. Or am I saying something different?
Is it the system itself determining that discount? Are you saying that it's at the stage before that?
So the broker determines the discount level.
Yeah.
Because the broker is the one that's aware of whether they're a veteran or whether they've got, universal credit or whatever the other things are, and can verify that. And the booking system is the one that is responsible for the pricing.
But to identify them, but surely, again, this may be a discussion that happened last week, and I apologise for not being on that call, but surely they need to be identified who they are before you offer the price. Otherwise, how do you know you've actually got the appropriate price for the person that's online, virtually?
I think it did come up last week, Andy, and we said that this wasn't going to be anything. I'm just focusing on the Gladstone solution because that's the software I know. But if I was to be, if I was building this for MCR and they want to see the MCR discounted rates before somebody is logged in, then that means we need to be able to configure what rates are going to be applied to an activity before an individual is logged in. Therefore, we'd need a way to say that in this case, for this centre, the standard prices that are displayed are based on a particular area of the database. That will be price levels for us. So we would say for Manchester Active, you need to display prices associated to price level A, B, and C.
Based upon the membership package that they actually hold.
And whoever else comes on board, but it needs to be a configuration element, I think, that we're becoming in control of. But then there's another level of when a member is joined, or when you're joining a member, you're applying a subscription to them, which gives them their entitlements. So it's two parts, and unless you've got that broken down anywhere else in the document.
Yeah, it's a mapping exercise, isn't it, from a signing up perspective to the membership. What membership basically then you are allocated to a particular price level. Again, this is Gladstone spiel, I'm afraid, but equally as well, when you go to make a booking or you want to see a price that's relevant, you need to, that person who in theory is unknown in the cloud at the moment is then to be shown a price or prices that are applicable to that particular broker. But then I suppose, are we then saying at the point of when you actually identify who you are, because you're registered, it'll then know your level of pricing, because the last thing you want is to say, here's a choice of prices, which one do you want? And you've got adults picking junior prices and then proceeding from that point onwards.
Yeah, so I think we might be talking about requirement 4 here, which is allowing the broker to determine and assign concessions, and then there's another requirement somewhere which is about the display of the prices for the browse stage. So maybe that's what. I'm not sure what the browse stage one is though.
Yeah.
I see them as three different elements. I see them as a high level pricing for that contract or that agreement that everybody's going to get if they're in that operator, or if they're in MCR active. Then there's another part to this of assigning memberships to individuals to give them their entitlement, and how that's going to work. How is that going to work? How are you going to know which memberships you need to assign to which people? You need a solution for that. And then you've got another element, which is the concession proof, which is what we've discussed before, about providing concession proof for concession type memberships that you're applying to an individual. You may apply an adult membership to somebody and you don't need to get concession proof, but if you can apply in a concession membership, you might want concession proof. It's three different parts to it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Should we try and capture that that effectively here, so we can then figure out to work it in? Or have you got some of that, Tim?
I've noted it down here. I mean, I think how this the problem is it's kind of almost a structural problem with the document, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So I've noted it down on a piece of paper for later mediation into the electronic form. I guess with point 3, I guess there's 2 points. So first of all, I guess there's a sort of lack of clarity in my head anyway about what membership means here. So this is the MCR active, or what we were calling the entitlement scheme. Is that the intention? Okay, right. So the idea is that MCR active says, as part of your amazing deal, and they've worked out a deal with these various sellers, that swimming is free, and that has to be automatically recognized. Is what the requirement's trying to capture there.
Yes.
Okay. And then the second ambiguity is around recognized by their entry system, which Steve pointed to. So Steve, if I'm understanding your concern correctly, it was, is this a barcode? Is this checking in at the desk? Was that the ambiguity you were concerned with?
I'll say with the barcode, but I think it wasn't clear whether this was, when it says recognized by the entry system, is this the access control entry system you're referencing here? Either you're suggesting that somebody could have the right membership, as Debbie just described, and just go to the access control and swipe in because it recognized they got free swimming, which I'm not so sure that's what we want. Or they go to the desk and when they swipe a membership card, or they're looked up, they are recognized because they're in the system and their entitlement to there, which is free swimming. So I don't think that was made particularly clear.
So I've just added access control to that point, because that was certainly the intention of what I understand of the requirements.
Okay.
That's fine, but it doesn't cover the stuff that we've discussed, is it? Because it said that statement is allow a customer to join on a scheme that provides blah 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 recognized by the entry control system. It's allow a customer to join on a scheme so that it can recognize the entitlements.
Yeah.
That's the solution that you're asking us for, I believe.
Yeah. Well, that's a solution, yeah, to that. Is it? I mean, is it worth? Sorry, go on. Tim.
I think we're anticipating each other. I think it might be worth going through because I think those concerns are mixed in subsequent points. And it might be worth moving through them just to untangle a little bit to make sure we're getting a full representation of the concerns. Was that where you were heading, Nick?
Yeah, spot on.
Okay, so point 4, it ties into that. So allow the broker to determine and assign which concessions are appropriate to each customer that is part of their membership scheme once that customer has logged into the broker's service. So this is again looking at the, say, MCR active sense of membership. And it's purely about specifying more closely what prices or what discounts are appropriate to them once they've been identified.
I think the key words here are determine and assign. So this is about determining and assigning which concessions are involved. And then the pricing being visible at the browse stage, and that conversation, which was the other part of what Debbie was saying, I think, is then point 6.
mean, I'd be reluctant to use the word concessions here, if I'm honest, just because I don't know about anybody else. But within this industry, a concession is somebody that's entitled to discount because they are unemployed over a certain age, under a certain age.
Could we use entitlement? Is that more general?
Yeah, probably. Concessions is more specific to the individual, I think, rather than
So we
this
use
broad statement.
If we use entitlement language throughout, that's consistent.
Right. So and implicit here is that the customer already has out of band supplied proof and therefore acquired the appropriate membership to their needs. So it's just about aligning what entitlements are assigned with that particular category of membership. Okay. So I think skipping point 5 for the moment, moving on to point 6, facilitate booking at these concession prices. Okay, right. Yeah, okay, we've got.
Well, I'll just go through and fix those.
Okay, so facilitate booking at these entitlement prices, both via walk-in and online, which includes showing the entitlement prices at the browse stage of the booker's online booking journey in the majority of cases. Right.
How many membership types are you talking about here? Because isn't it just quite, could it be simplified that effectively in, say, in our system that we just create a type of membership which has all these benefits, entitlements, which Manchester Active can use, and all that's coming across is that information from Manchester Active to say this is that type of person, I don't know, a category of 4 different things, and then that could be a lot simpler. It seems to me this just seems to be way overcomplicated for what it needs to be.
Great, great to get into that, because that is if there's ways of simplifying it, 100%. I think that what we've got to so far, we're trying to simplify it. We've ended up with, I think, between 12 and 14, Stephen. I can't remember the exact number. You've got Manchester adult resident, Manchester junior resident. You've got Manchester adult and junior, resident, non-resident, and then concession levels of 30, 15, or 40%. So there's a couple of permutations that then create your 12 or 14 levels, and then you've got free swimming between 16 and 17. So you end up with something. It's not hundreds, but it's also more than kind of 2 or 3.
As it does not say.
But it's not. I don't know if I'm speaking for myself, but it's not for the people in this room to decide that they can suddenly change the prices that are in agreement with the client, because it'll be written into the contracts.
Yes.
You can't just take it away to simplify this process. And I certainly wouldn't be the one that would be able to make that decision and say I'm taking all the Manchester Active discounts away just so that there's 2, just so we can simplify this process. I'm not sure that's a viable solution, if I'm honest.
Was that what you meant, Sam? Or was that, I misunderstand what you were saying, Sam?
I don't think Sam was suggesting that.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just I'm generally trying to think how to make this work and reduce the workload to make it happen, really. But I mean, who's building? What is the system here? That this Manchester Active? This sounds to me like it is a membership system in itself, with all kind of replicating what a leisure management system is. Is it? If it's doing the billing, it's effectively.
It is, Sam.
Right. Okay. So it's just simply replicating.
Yeah, we just list a bunch of memberships available for sale on GLL's website and put them for sale on this website. So there's no loss or no gain. It's just a moving from one part to another.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
It should be worth mentioning there, Sam, that they're not billed for memberships. There's no payment. They're all free on the basis of documents supplied.
Right.
So no direct debit, just to make that clear, because direct debit's in the non-goals, and that's obviously a whole other problem, which is definitely not in scope.
Okay, I think what this raises, though, is the question of number 3, not attempting to provide accurate pricing for all members at the browse stage. So I guess what I'm unclear on is where the acceptable dividing line is between the small rationalized subset of discount entitlements that are supported and the long tail of other pricing combinations. is that a clear operational reality? Because it looks very fuzzy in the document, and I'm not too sure whether that's because the reality is fuzzy or because the document is fuzzy.
So I think what this is representing is the pay and play memberships available for each of the local authorities, effectively. So if you've got a Manchester MCR, for example, they've got those, whatever we said, a dozen or so pay and play memberships, which you can get without paying, and obviously you depending on what documentation you supply, you get a different membership, or your postcode or your date of birth, you get a different membership. That they will obviously exist for different local authorities. If you go to Westminster, you have a different set of those. You can't use the Manchester pay and play discounts in Westminster and vice versa. They're not. That doesn't. There's no value in that happening. So what that means is practically that you end up with a very small set for each site, right? Because you're only looking at what they really have available locally.
Okay, so is it possible to characterize more precisely which won't be catered for then? I guess it's implicit in the pay and play members, really. So it's outside of that set aren't catered for.
Yeah, and this rationalized subset, this is one of those, I think very early on in the conversations, it's probably Eugene from Active Westminster said, you know, we were all talking about 50, 100 memberships. There's 3. I'll make them 3 because I'm control the contract, kind of thing, which is what led us to this realization that actually, although memberships is a big scary thing and there's thousands of permutations, actually for these particular for the local authorities, for the pay and play, they have control over rationalizing those, and that's just a decision they need to make. So if they want to run a scheme like this, which obviously GM Active, the wider GM and others are looking at after Westminster and MCR, then they also have to rationalize.
Okay, so I guess what this doesn't help is brokers who are not contracted by local authorities.
Well, it just means that your number of entitlements that you can support is got to be a small number. That's all. Mm-hmm. Which is a limitation of the overall architecture. We can't. It doesn't support hundreds or thousands of different membership options. So for brokers who are local authorities, this works, and also for booking systems that are not leisure operators, it works. Mm-hmm. Obviously well.
Okay.
I think it's just worth pointing out that actually, notwithstanding what's in point 3 there, is essentially there's only 5 prices per activity, by and large. Full price, 10% discount, 30% discount, 50 or 40% discount, and 100% discount. That's it. And there might be thousands and thousands, 100,000 of memberships, but they all pay one of those prices. It's almost as simple as that. Now, you might pay a different price for your membership, and that becomes a little bit more complex. But in terms of pricing is actually quite simple.
Okay, and there might be different rationales for why you get that particular discount.
Yeah, whether your membership qualifies for which level of discount is as we've already discussed, and Debbie's called to that in the previous point early on. It's no different whether we're on Legend or whether we're on Gladstone. Essentially, the pricing is there are millions of prices. Don't get me wrong, but essentially the price brackets are fairly straightforward. Our discounting structure is actually very slim. We just got millions of the prices. That's the difficulty.
Okay, I guess, yeah. I think that speaks more to what a solution looks like than what a requirement is. But as long as that requirement can be serviced, oh yeah, I guess it's an artificial. It's a sort of artificial limitation of the requirements, really, in order that they can be met. Okay. Flipping back to point 5, allow the broker to determine which time slots are appropriate to each customer in relation to their membership scheme. So that's an interesting requirement. And on the W3C call, it was indicated that there might be further restrictions which are relevant besides time and discount rates. Are there others that need to be canvassed here? Or is it really just time slots? So if you've got a certain kind of membership, you can only do off peak or something.
You're never restricted to just off peak in that example you gave, Tim, because of course a membership you can come anytime. The question is how much you pay, because your entitlement might be to free gym use during the day, but in the evening you pay. It doesn't stop you giving access during the evening.
Right. Okay. So this requirement needs to actually be about which time slot based prices are appropriate.
I actually don't. I know this was brought up in the last call, but I'm not sure that this. I don't know if this is necessarily in scope for what we're talking about here. Mainly because this is just about different. This is just about picking which entitlement's appropriate.
Yeah,
So
but is it pricing, Nick? As Stephen's indicating there, or are you actually saying, is it to restrict entry? As Stephen's saying there, and it sounds like within Greenwich, they don't actually restrict entry. They just charge different prices different day depending on the actual level of pricing. And that would be the same for everyone active.
Yeah.
I mean, the other side of it, I suppose, talking devil's advocate here, is that are we saying the broker is dictating when the Manchester discounts are different in pricing in comparison to maybe how the operator actually runs their facilities on a different time scale? So is peak and off peak different to the operator versus the broker? It's quite ambiguous there.
why? So maybe I'm missing something here. But why would it matter in terms of that time? So if what MCR is saying is you qualify for X discount, whatever X is, your junior off peak, or not, sorry, not junior, your Manchester resident that's junior, for example, and that, so let's say that Manchester junior residents are only allowed in off peak for some reason. That's the level of that entitlement. But why would that matter? Because are we just not assigning that membership? Is the issue that we need to tell the user that restriction is the case?
I think I may be wrong here, but I think the question really here is it just ambiguous as it is at this moment? Are we just talking about pricing changes, or are we talking about actually restricting people? What is the actual requirement around 0.5?
So this was brought up on the W3C call, and my understanding from that was that it was about simply not allowing entrance under a particular scheme. If that's just an inaccurate understanding on my part, I'm happy to. If this is really just a subclass of entitlements, then I'm happy to just eliminate it as a requirement.
I think it is a subclass.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay. Just strike that through then. I'll review the previous call just to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly. Could be that that's just an unnecessary additional requirement then. Allow new users to be, so I think we've already dealt with 6, moving on to 7, allow new users to be introduced to the scheme via the broker, that is to say creating customer accounts. I think that's a fairly clear requirement. I think how you actually do that might be more complicated, but the requirement I think is fairly straightforward. Is that fair?
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, facilitate booking for dependents, e.g. Kids, etc. via one account, provided that the implementing system already supports this functionality. So that was a restriction that was introduced again from the W3C call. Are there systems that do in fact support this functionality?
Ours doesn't. When I say ours, Legends doesn't.
Right, Legends doesn't. Okay.
We are working on that functionality within the Gladstone system, but I think one of the questions that came out was not just the ability to do that, it was about controlling that access of who's allowed to book on whose behalf, and that controlling structure within it as well.
Sorry, Andrew, can you unpack that for me a little bit? I don't think I quite followed that.
Yeah, so I mean, we've put kids there, but obviously that could be friends, it could be family, and it's kind of that whole, not just you know, I've got Nick associated on my account and my membership covers us both, but how do we control if I'm actually allowed to book on his behalf, and then if I do book on his behalf and he doesn't turn up and there's a penalty for that, where does the debt sit? Who takes responsibility? There's a whole world of that kind of dishonor and that type that sits alongside that. So
Okay.
there's a lot to unpack, I think, which, you know, some of that may be not consequential for this, but I think it is things that will pop up.
Yeah.
The good thing is about that is, well, the good thing, those issues will be solved by the booking system through whatever mechanism is going to be used. I know, you know, it sounds like Gladstone's got a plan. I know Flow also has a plan similarly to implement that. Whatever we're talking about here, it's probably similar to the way that it works with memberships, in that there might be reasons why you have debt on your account, or you haven't done a gym induction, or something means that you can't book, or there's some implication about the booking that you've made that's created a particular issue. I suppose potentially a lot of that actually doesn't create more complexity for us here, because all we're really doing is saying whatever you can do to book on behalf of your kid or whoever else within the Gladstone system, you can also do on MCR for the kind of simple case of making a booking. So that might be, and then you obviously need to log into to your booking system to pay your debt, or whatever the other issues are that might come out of that. If that helps.
I feel like there's an additional requirement here about how you indicate these kinds of differences, though. If we've got systems that do support the functionality and systems that don't, and we've declared various points out of scope, how do we flag that up to the user?
Yes, I assume that was that may be a more of a non-functional, but I guess it could be a functional requirement. We've already have those mechanisms in the booking spec, in terms of there's feature flags that you can, for example, you support approvals, some don't support approvals. So feature flagging features that are optional, that are not implemented, like approvals.
But is it at the level of requirements, does it make sense just to add a note in here saying, actually probably more under 0.9, in fact, we need to have some kind of means of indicating to the end user differences of functionality between systems?
Maybe not even end user. Is that a requirement? Is it just about the systems? I think we talked about what are they called? Not catalogs, but the certificate had a feature profile before, didn't it? There's a need more generally for the feature profile of the systems to be specified across all features, so that the user can be informed about limitations in all areas. So this is for the gap is probably between the user being informed and the features being specified, but I don't know if we've actually filled that particular gap anywhere.
Yeah, I feel like once we start getting into the feature profile, again, I think you're right, but I think that starts moving towards the domain of a solution.
Sure. Yeah. No, I wasn't saying it wasn't a requirement. I guess I was just saying it's kind of a non-functional, or we could definitely capture it here. I'm not sure if because there's only 10 of these, but it's good to capture it somewhere for sure. And why not here? So yeah. Yeah.
Well, I'll do my amazing piece of paper work around here. So something about communication of system differences, feature profiles, for want of a better phrasing. But I think the requirement would be I guess everybody down the chain needs to know. The end user does need to know, but it's also about the broker knowing. So yeah, it's. Well, if you, I guess
it's all related to terms and conditions, isn't it? If a booking, it's you know, if you use Expedia, then you're making your booking through Expedia. Your terms and conditions are with them, or if it's pointing you off to another source, then it would say your booking conditions may be restricted by whoever the broker is in that point. So I guess it's just making it clear for that end user.
Yeah, it's potentially confusing, I guess, if you're using one broker and you can book dependents in one provider and you can't in another one, and suddenly it just looks like that functionality has disappeared for some reason, and it's not clear what's going on there. So I think there's a sort of UX consideration there.
Yeah. Whether that ends up going any spec or if it's just a guidance, it sounds like a great thing to have for sure. Guidance around how to solve that problem for brokers. Obviously, brokers might solve that differently depending on their use cases.
Yeah, I think we probably it probably does need to be some. Well, underlying that would be some kind of way of communicating from the booking system to the broker, right? About what the
features are. 100%. Yeah, and that's why I was referencing that feature profile conversation we've kind of had with the existing work around the dataset sites. So that's exactly the same thing. Yeah, and agreed. Really good to do. Really important.
Okay, non-goals. So yeah, I think we've already indicated that direct debit and new memberships and so forth are out of scope, and the solution is just a link essentially. Not facilitating management of the entire operator account in the broker. So this is, if you make a booking through the system provider's native application, you don't necessarily get to, or you cannot manage that booking via another broker. That's out of scope, and I think in terms of actual use, that's not going to be a conflict. Not attempting to provide accurate pricing for all members at the browse stage. I think we've already discussed that. Not attempting to provide access mechanisms beyond barcodes displayed via mobile devices. I guess that's another. Is this another sort of communication to the end user sort of problem, or how do?
I actually think this gets wrapped up in our out of band conversation from earlier. Because the barcodes displayed via mobile devices, I mean, this requirement isn't actually, I don't think, completely accurate, because at least in MCR and Westminster, I believe, they're provisioning real cards that actually have physical barcodes on. Mm-hmm. So I wonder whether this, the out of band conversation we had before, where the scope of this is about communicating only the barcode numbers. And however those barcode numbers end up, whether they're on a QR code or NFC chips, have been discussed in the MCR project. So that's, it's not even necessarily a visible thing. It might just be electronic completely. So the whole spectrum.
Are there going to be access mechanisms that can't be catered for electronically, I guess? Are there going to be cases where there's a class that you just have to go into the center and show your MCR active pass, and entrance is sort of manual by the entry desk, or can you do a complete flow throughout everywhere using the MCR active app?
Yeah, you're right, Tim, that not every location that we manage has an automated entry system. Therefore, check-in at a desk is required.
Okay.
And there's different types of entry control as well. So if you're using facial recognition instead of a barcode, then again, that's going to need some additional form of registration.
Okay. And okay, well, so what does this mean for the? Yeah.
I think that's still very rare. So it's not, but I think it is something future. Mm-hmm. think
Oh,
about.
okay, we just need to be more precise about what we're not including. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. Assuming that you cannot get a sort of access mechanism over the, say, MCR Active app, it should still be the case that you can show up and enter, however. So do we need to, is there a requirement for just displaying a message about the process that has to be gone through to secure access?
I think that would be appropriate.
Okay.
I think in all our confirmations of every booking, you're told to use access control if it's there. If not, check it at the desk, kind of thing. But it's just very basic.
Yeah, it's very basic. I'm just again picturing the user flow where you're like, okay, I'm booked on, that's great, and then it's like, well, what? what do I do? Okay. I mean, it feels like a sort of fairly minor and simple to cater for edge case, but I think it's worth capturing that. I'm intention to see what.
Sorry, Tim. What I've done is I've put them in the wrong place. I've just captured non-goals in.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I was thinking that it was like.
Okay.
Taking everything out of scope. That was completely.
It's a not in scope.
Okay, that's clear though. Okay, good. Okay, great. And not addressing management of customer credit. So that's. I guess this kind of got into the same sort of area of what sort of functionality is supported on what kinds of systems. Yeah, whether you can deal with things like customer credit and refunds, cancellation, that kind of thing. I think is that covered under. I guess that's covered under 9. In cases where native system functionality falls short of all the functionality envisaged, provision needs to be made for how this gap is communicated to end users. Okay, so I think that's. Is there anything that we need to specify further than customer credit? Are there other scenarios where pricing becomes complicated, or there are special circumstances that obtain?
There's a number of reasons why you might not be able to make a booking, such as being locked out or.
Yeah, you're not including you're not managing customer debt, are you either? So in the same vein that credit's not addressed, debt wouldn't be, I guess.
Okay. And I guess then you get like real edge cases. Well, I mean, what happens if somebody just misbehaves terribly? Like, do people get barred from facilities and that kind of thing?
Yeah, happens.
Okay.
It might actually be a communication of.
Yeah.
Memberships get suspended.
Right. Okay.
Occasionally. For bad behavior.
Okay. So yeah, once again, just a sort of communication piece. Okay, I think I'm going to very cautiously say I think we're there, and we've got a convenient 6 minutes left for sort of any other business or points arising. Does anyone have any general reflections or other concerns they want to raise right now?
If I could, not necessarily a concern, but just pick up on something that Stephen mentioned earlier, which is that there's a 10% discount, 50%, 40%, or 100% discount. And essentially all we're talking about is prices. I wonder if thinking about memberships is confusing it significantly by virtue of there's no mechanism for communicating membership types from broker to booking system or vice versa. Right? That's all going to be done offline. Am I right in thinking that? Like, there's going to be an agreement between all the parties to say this is a level of, so you set up this membership in here, and I'll let you know if they're entitled to that. Sorry, entitlement. You set up these entitlements. I'll let you know if they qualify for those entitlements, etc. So it's all about prices and opportunities here. So there's, in terms of the communication between the systems, the booking system will say, here's a set of opportunities and a set of potential prices, and the broker will say, well, okay, I know they're eligible for this one, and they'll say, please book them in. And the booking system will check, are they eligible for that one? Yes, they are. I'm late to the party here, so you know, I appreciate that these conversations may have been had ages ago previously, but as an implementer, I'm still struggling to understand exactly what we're aiming to implement here. If I were looking at implementing something based on, okay, here's what the system needs to do in terms of provide a list of the prices for these particular opportunities, and then behind the scenes decide whether it's a question of authentication and opportunity, as opposed to specifically talking about memberships and entitlements and things. I haven't yet had a chance to properly go through it. I said we chatted yesterday, and I was saying I was going to go through the appendices into this document, which will show a bit more implementation details. I haven't had a chance to go through that, so maybe what I'm suggesting is actually in there anyway. But you know, this set of requirements, I'm personally, as an implementer, going to struggle to try and implement. I don't know. Maybe everybody else has a much better understanding of all of this than I do.
Are you saying just from the clarity of the requirements themselves, Matt?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the tricky thing here is we've abstracted the requirements into such a high level that they're virtually meaningless for implementation at this point.
Exactly.
I think that's actually an intentional decision, because we want to start from the very top, get business buy-in and work back to the details. So we've come at it from both angles. You've got the 40-page doc with the appendices that's referenced in this document at the top and linked there, and then there's then this one, which is a very obviously more concise version. I think the trouble with this kind of document is that obviously we can't. I suppose one of my comments earlier about maybe we shouldn't be capturing this particular requirement in here is because if this was an exhaustive list of all requirements in detail, this would be a kind of spreadsheet with 100 rows in it or something. So it's just about figuring out what the balance is to make sure people are comfortable as we go through the journey from top to bottom.
It feels to me like this is more of a requirements document for like the requirements for a relationship between a broker and a booking system, as opposed to requirements for what a booking system or a broker should do to, I don't know what the right word is there.
It's not formalized that you could code this up.
But then again, as Nick said, at the moment potentially it's not supposed to be. But
yes, this is definitely like high-level business requirements. I guess maybe that's why they come from that kind of language. It's about customers and opportunities and booking things, as you say, rather than systems and interfaces.
I mean, I think what I'll make 2 points. I guess one would. It sounds like really this document is not for you at all, basically. But I mean, is this the kind of thing that a few examples would just clarify? If there was a sort of person X has membership Y, therefore entitlement Z, would that kind of clarify things a little more usefully in this context?
Probably, yes. But even then, I think the discussion of memberships and entitlements and things is one level too high as well. It's more like broker X authenticates person Y and knows that they are eligible to pay price Z, as opposed to getting into memberships and entitlements, and this operator has, because and of course it's going to, because it's being driven by a specific set of companies in this scenario who have their precise requirements. But there is probably still a danger of slipping into catering for their both verbiage and use cases that doesn't then lend itself more openly to a set of requirements that we can code against.
I think what I'll say to that, I guess there's actually two processes that have to happen. One of which is to actually canvass this with a wider array of stakeholders at a business level. And then for the rest of it, it's tune in 2 weeks from now when we delve into the 40-page document, and it will be much more, codey kind of conversation.
Fair enough. I'll be there for that.
Okay, right, yeah.
That's fun times.
You asked for detail, you're getting it. Okay.
That 40-page document is available at the top of this doc for anyone to
yeah.
look at ahead of time, by the way.
Yeah.
That's not a secret detail. I'll post it on the Slack channel as well. Well, I'm sure actually, Timmy, you could send that around, I presume, in the minutes or whatever, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. We're at the top of the hour. Or sorry, at the end of the tail of the hour. So thank you very much for joining. And yeah, as I say, this was the last of the kind of hammering out requirements calls. So yeah, we'll get into weeds next week, and people on this call can decide whether that sounds like it suits them or not. Yeah, see a good subset of you a couple of weeks hence, I hope. Okay, thanks a lot all.
Thanks all. Bye.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks all. Bye.
Thanks all.